All right, it's 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Administration and Finance Committee for the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, Monday, November the 9th at 6:30 p.m. I call the meeting to order. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Chair is looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I have Councillor Hunter moving, and I have Deputy Mayor Deschamps seconding. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. And item number 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. So I'm going to declare my interest first. I have pecuniary interest then with item number 5A and 6A on the agenda. These two agenda items involve the topic of improving connectivity in Ontario, specifically the Cogeco request for funding to provide a broadband service between Johnstown and Cardinal. And if that project goes ahead, it would provide fiber to the home, to my home at 1529 County Road 2. I deem that to be a direct pecuniary interest. I'll be declaring a conflict with those two items and leaving the chair. Deputy Mayor Tory Deschamps will be chairing the meeting when I leave the chair. Are there any other disclosures of pecuniary interest here this evening? And I see no others. Now, at item number 4 on the agenda, which is the business arising from the previous Committee of the Whole meeting, and that was the meeting that was held on October the 13th. Now, is there any business arising from that meeting that anybody would like to bring forward or ask questions about? Hearing none, I'm going to move on. So, moving on from that item to item number 5A on the agenda. And that item number 5A is delegations and presentations. And the first delegation presentation will be Mr. Michael Hennessy from Cogeco. And I'm leaving the chair, having declared a conflict of interest. Deputy Mayor Tory.
Thank you, sir. The slide over here in my chair. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Welcome to the meeting tonight. I see that you have a little slide deck for your delegation. If you would like to go ahead and make that presentation to council, there are screens around the room, and everybody's able to see you and hear you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. Can you hear me okay?
I think so. Yep. Good.
Okay. First of all, I got to apologize for not spelling your township correct on my slide. The oversight of my part, so I'd like to start off. I apologize. I've had the opportunity to come out and meet with Mayor Say last June 11th as I was driving around all of Eastern Ontario, meeting the mayors, learning what Cogeco is planning on doing, and talking about all the different programs that are out there. So today I'll just give you a quick highlight about all the programs, but feel free to ask me any questions, because this is all I do for a living, is deal with these programs. If you can go on to the second slide, please. I'll start on the left-hand side with all the different areas of funding that's available. The CRTC Broadband Fund, which is why I came to see Mayor Say last summer, is a $750 million fund to bring high-speed access to areas that have no, and I mean zero internet capabilities. I just
Michael,
heard the president of the CRTC last week at a conference. They had 600 applicants for that broadband fund, requesting $1.5 billion. Yes, yes, Deputy Mayor.
Are you going to project your screen so that everyone can see your slide deck, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that. Okay, never mind. I can do that right now. I was under the impression that that was being shown in the agenda. Let me see here. Share screen.
He can, right?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I saw it in the agenda, so I thought that you could see it, and we just killed that. Go to presentation mode. Okay, so again, broadband fund, $750 million, but they've already had 1.5 billion worth of applications. That broadband fund was supposed to last over 5 years, and they were planning on putting out 100 million the first year, 125 the second year, and so forth. So as you can see, there's an immense amount of demand. Then there's the ICON, the Improving Connectivity in Ontario, that just moved up from 150 million to 300 million last week, because again, the Ontario government realized there's such demand for this, and of course, with COVID involved, they realized how important it is to get high-speed access to rural communities. Just today, ISED, the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development, they produced their RFP just today, and that's went on 1.7 billion. And so there's a lot of money on the table to be spent, and of course, for every one of these bids, companies like Cogeco would be putting in a significant portion as well, so it would really add up to quite a bit of investment. The last one I'll speak about is EORN, which you guys are very familiar with. Currently, EORN, with their 215 million, is focused on cellular, closing the cellular gap. So they're not really participating in this high-speed internet access to rural homes at this time. So I'm going to quickly go over the left-hand side of the screen now, but again, I will leave myself open for questions afterwards. The minimum service level objective of all of these different opportunities here is 50 megabytes down and 10 megabytes up. Now, that sounds probably pretty good if you have builder in, but it's certainly on the low end for the future. What Cogeco is building is fiber to the home, and fiber to the home means you get access to up to gig speeds. So that's 1,000 megabytes down and 1,000 megabytes up. So that really future-proofs you. And as well, because it is fiber, speed is just dependent on what boxes you put on the end. You want more speed, you put different boxes on the end, and fiber has essentially an infinite amount of speed. The COVID pandemic has highlighted the issues of the high-speed internet in rural homes and everywhere. All the programs on the right-hand side, each program has their unique requirements. I'm part of a dedicated team that does nothing but apply for government funds and tries to secure them and increase Cogeco's footprint. In all programs, especially the ICON program, having local support is critical, and Edwardsburg Cardinal has been very good at providing letters of support so that we can move forward. In the case of ICON, they're only funding up to 25% of the overall spend. That's substantially different than CRTC or ISED. The CRTC, in some bids, we were requesting up to 80% funding. Of course, we're going very rural at that point, so it's very costly to get there. But the ICON does not allow us to have that type of requirement, so we had to go in at 25%, which is really why I'm here speaking to you tonight. There were two intakes. Intake one was for bids that were ICON only funding. That means no one else needed to fund it. While we stuck into that intake one, the bids that we felt we could get support from the municipalities, so that again we could do 100% of the work with just the 25% ICON funding, which is exactly what we're doing here with in Edwardsburg Cardinal. Intake two is due on December the 11th, and it's not only requiring the ICON funding, but it also knows you need to go somewhere else for funding, either ISED or CRTC. So that's intake two that's coming up. And Cogeco requires a slightly more than the ICON funding allocation for your township. So as for my notes to Mayor Sayu, we're looking for $31,000. With $31,000, we can, and the 25% of MyCon, move forward quickly. A moment of questions. I can go on for hours, and I know we only have so much time. So I'll leave it open for questions now, and otherwise I'll move forward.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone have any questions so far to this point? Councillor Steve Dillabaugh has a question for you, Michael.
Yes, Michael, on the icon of 300 million, you're getting 25% of the 300 million?
Each submission, when we have, we're submitting 46 bids to ICOM. Each one of those bids will be completely different geographies, different cost structures depending where they are. Within each of those individual bids, we are requesting, we can only request, like each one has a cost, that cost is X. We can only ask ICOM for 25% of X, with, that's all they'll fund is 25%. So we're not going for 25% of 300 million, we're going for 25% on the 46 projects that we're submitting.
Follow-up question?
Sure.
What is our bid then? We're one of the 46 bids, is that right? So what is the amount of our bid then?
Your bid is a really strong bid in that with the $31,000 input from Edwardsburg Farm Mill, we'll get an immediate pass by ICON. They will immediately give us the 25% and we can move forward. Now, I think one of the questions you're going to probably ask is, what percentage of the bid is just $31,000? It represents 3.3% of the overall cost of the bid.
Michael, just for clarification, did you suggest that you were pre-approved for the ICON funding of up to 25%?
Pre-approved will probably be a stronger word than I'd like to use, but with the communications we've had with ICON, they were very encouraging towards giving us the money for projects like this. Overall, of the all the projects, there's only 14 of them that should go through immediately. The other ones are going to require either ISED or CRTC funding. So yes, they have not stated it directly, but I have been in communication with them, and it sounds like they're very much supportive of a bid that they can put 25% in and move forward right away.
Councillor Cameron?
No, it's okay.
Not
I
yet.
just answered my own question, thank you.
Councillor Hunter?
On the bid that we're doing here, I read in one of the things, it only covers 308 houses.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct. So if you go on to the confidential, okay, this slide here is the confidential slide. I'm not sure if this is open to the public, the meeting of a whole.
Yeah, it is.
It is now.
Nonetheless, just as soon not have this out in the public, but nonetheless, that's the area we're looking at on the right-hand side, and it covers 308 homes. And because of the 25% funding maximum of the ICON program, we can't venture too far away from our network, because if we have to build a long, let's say, distribution line to get to the number of homes, that'll eat up the 25% right off the bat. So we have, in the ICON bids, we have to stay very close to home, as they say, very close to our network. But we also have CRTC bid, and today we received the ISED bid, so, or ISED submissions. The intention is to cover everything, and in fact, Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau today said they plan on having 98% homes in Canada with high-speed internet by 2026. So it may be just one bid, but don't forget, I got lots of bids going on. I got bids all over the place.
Follow up?
Oh yeah, but on that, so basically you're following where your network's already traveling. How long until we anticipate that you would be moving back fiber into the rural area, into Spencerville, Shanley area?
Good question. Certainly, as we look, the ISED bid process is specifically going to be tailored towards getting into the more rural areas. Your TC bid that we submitted last June the 1st, and we haven't heard anything back from them yet. It too was very much concentrated on the rural areas. So what ICON has done in this particular situation, they said, okay, we'll give you 25%, but then you can piggyback that with ISED and the CRTC. So there is still room for us to go with ICON and these other bids, but certainly the ICON and CRTC, we have more rural bids going in with them. So today, just talking about ICON specifically.
Jack?
Yes,
And I'll give you another piece of information that it was not part of the presentation. Right now, I'm also in discussions with Augusta and Elizabethtown Kitney. I didn't ask Augusta to fill the entire gap of shortfall for the Augusta bid because that bid shortfall was $500,000. So I know that there's no way they have $500,000 to spend, so we're going to have to go to ISED to fill that gap. But what I did say to them is that they could give us a nominal bit of money, something that, say 10%. Then when we go to ISED, we say, look, we got an ICON funding, we have municipal participation and support with their 10% funding of the shortfall, and now please ICON, if you give us the remainder, we can move forward with that project. So right now, I've already been in discussions with Augusta and Elizabethtown Kitney about that topic because their gaps are so large. The gap for this particular bid, again, was $31,000, and I felt that potentially the township could close that gap. Now, let me just tell you, if you say, Mike, we don't have $31,000, and I completely appreciate that and understand that. But it doesn't mean we withdraw this bid. It just means now we take this bid and we go to ISED and request that shortfall from them. But the only problem is, it's going to be a very large stack of bids. It is very, very large stack of bids. So in that regard, it's a risk. You risk not getting the funding in this iteration. But trust me, there's going to be many iterations. This is iteration number 1. The CRTC is supposed to have 5 iterations. ISED is going to have many iterations. ICON has 2 iterations. So we're going to be at this for many years, applying and reapplying and trying to secure funding. And then as we secure funding for a certain area, that means getting the next area is that much cheaper.
Okay, I think there's another question for you, Michael. Jack?
Michael, my name's John Bradley, and I'm not an elected member. I'm a member from the community representative.
Yes.
I have several questions, actually. I hope they will indulge me to ask these. And I'm going to follow up on Councillor Hunter's question regarding additional services throughout the township other than the 308. And the question is related to whether or not Cogeco has adopted, under cellular, corporations would look at a density for area because they're looking at a kind of a cell area. And with fiber, a lot of the smaller telecoms are not a criticism, but they have gone to kind of a linear model whereby they estimate what they will do relative per kilometer. Some of them are going as low as 14 residences per kilometer, but I think the big telcos tend to be higher than that. Has Cogeco looked at that kind of a model?
Okay, John, thank you very much for the question. And I'm going to take some time to respond to them. I want to talk about, we're really talking about 3 things. Cogeco is dealing with fiber to the home, which is the gold standard for any internet connectivity. You did mention cellular. Cogeco is not currently a cellular provider, so we don't deal with cellular, although we have bought spectrum and we are talking to CRTC about potentially becoming a cellular provider. The third wireless is fixed wireless. And you may have seen fixed wireless, that's when they put a tower up. And if your house can see that tower, or if you put a tower up yourself, so that the two towers have line of sight, you can have internet that way. And there are some companies like Storm Internet in that area that do that. So Cogeco is concentrating on fiber to the home. But realistically, we can't get fiber 100% everywhere. And actually, as I saw Mayor say last summer, I was saying our plan is to probably build fiber to somewhere near 80 to 85% of the homes. And those very difficult ones would be served by the fixed wireless. Also use the short term FWA, fixed wireless. Can't remember what it stands for. Anyways, so yes, our plan is to bring fiber as far as we can, and then use FWA, fixed wireless, to hit the final homes. And then, of course, also discussed today by Prime Minister Trudeau was the low Earth orbit satellites. There's pluses and minuses. Certainly, fiber is significantly better. With the low Earth orbit, you'll be dealing with things like snow and sleet and rain can all affect the speed. So whereas fiber is nothing affected. But it is good for those really rural places that there's just no economic way to get to. So those three technologies working together will allow Canadians to all have access to high-speed internet.
Okay, thank
I
you.
hope I answered your question, John.
Thank you. Now, I personally currently have 10-1. And so the question leads up to your estimated cost once this project's approved and possibly completed. Right now I'm paying about $87 a month for 10-1 plus 150 gigabytes. And so can you, are you able to speak to what you think the projected monthly cost would be?
Yes. One of the things about Cogeco is actually a nice company to work for. It's family run. It's owned by the O'Day family in Quebec, so they own 88% of the voting shares, so it's pretty much one family company. And they have a very much a community feel to how they operate. One of the things we do is we charge the same price to everybody in the network, whether you're in downtown Burlington, Hamilton, North Bay, Renfrew, or in your case, Edwardsburg, Cardinal. And you'll be able to get approximately about 90 megabytes down and 30 megabytes up for $89.
Right, okay.
And I know that because I just checked it today. And it's on our website. Our pricing's on our website. Anybody can go look them up because it's the same for everybody.
Okay, wonderful. Now, have you also made any estimates on penetration of the 308 homes?
That was another excellent question. So, we use the average of what we have in our footprint. So, currently, Cogeco is very much a small town cable co, in that we're not in Toronto, we're not in London, we're not in Ottawa, we're in all the small towns. Our average take-up rate is 52%. So all of our estimates in terms of finances, we estimate 52% of the people will take our services. In reality, since we're going to be the only game in town that has true high-speed internet, we anticipate getting more than 52%. But when we do our mathematics and we do our business cases, we assume, as average across our whole network, 52% of the homes that have access to our services sign up for our services.
Okay, wonderful. I think that...
Just one more point. I used to work at Bell, so I'll never bash any of my competitors. They pay me well, they treat me well. But they have an ROI of, they expect to get their money back in 3 years, which limits to where they can go. Cogeco has a 10-year plan in terms of making their money back. And again, that goes back to the O'Day family. They figure once they have a customer on fiber, they have that customer for 50 years. Like, that customer's not going anywhere. So they have a very long-term focus when they're doing this work, as opposed to Bell, with the way it operates. It's very, they need to make the money back in 3 years to don't move forward. So Coachco has a different way of applying the marketplace.
Okay, the other question would be relative to Johnstown, and I don't know if Cardinal is covered with, I know Cogeco has some services in Cardinal. But
Yeah, we have services in Johnstown right now.
yeah, so.
If I'm not mistaken, East Link's in the Cardinal.
Okay, so I think the question is this: if this project moves forward, is there an additional cost for Cogeco to upgrade the Johnstown node or whatever to bring it up to the 5010?
Right now, if you're in if you live there today, you have access to way more than 5010. In fact, the minimum speed we're now offering is 90/30.
Okay.
Whoa.
Great.
Really?
Okay.
I'm a customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a customer.
That's our minimum. We don't even have a price on the website anymore for anything, but I'm sorry, it's up to 90/20 probably is going off memory. But yeah, we aren't even offering slower speeds anymore. Even if you're just on coax, it makes no difference. If you don't have it already and you're on coax, you're going to have access to gig speed within the year regardless. Because we're upgrading our networks, even the coax customers will have access to gig speed. 60% of our network is already that way.
Thanks very much, Michael.
Dave,
Thank you.
you're good? Do I have any for Michael? Okay, my only question, Michael, would be, so you're asking for 31K, and that's through because of the ICON funding, but you've alluded to the possibility of using ISED funding and CRTC funding for other strips. Is there the possibility that you'll ask for those streams of funding or the UBF stream that was announced today for this stretch as well, regardless of whether we fund the 31K or not?
If you fund the 31K, we will not ask for any other funding from any other source, because that will allow our business case to fly. It means it's got the least amount of bureaucratic aspects within the government, and we would move forward because we want to move forward. If you guys say that 31 is beyond our means, then we would put in the application to ISED for that gap.
And so to follow that up then, so if we approved the 31K, and you did apply for further funding through CRTC, UBF, or ISED and received some of that, would we expect any of that 31K back?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't, if we got the 31K, we would not apply for the ISED to build that. We apply to ISED to get other areas within Edwardsburg Cardinal.
Okay, that answers my questions. Does anyone have any more follow-ups for Mike before we let him go? John? Counselor? No? Jack? No?
How quickly would it all start if we agreed to the 31?
Could you hear the question?
No, but please, if you don't mind repeating it.
Yeah, it was just how quickly could the project start? What would be?
Excellent question. So right now, ICON has requested that all projects that we submit be done by March 31st, 2024. So that's the very end date. That's not the date we're going to end for Edwardsburg Cardinal, but that's the very end date we must have it done by. So right now, if Edwardsburg Cardinal provides the 31,000, we would start and we go through the process of getting the ICON funding, which we think will happen. We'd be starting the process next late spring, but still, it would take at least 18 months from when we start to when we're done. I'm talking at a minimum 18 months. There is permits. The permits themselves can take a year at times. So most likely, it would be sometime in late 2022 or early 2023 before at the earliest that we'd be complete. And I apologize, but telecom work takes time. It is a very slow process. And plus, it has to work perfectly. You can't kind of have to do it. You have to do it perfectly, because once people up, they want it to work right. So there's only one way to do it, and that's the right way.
Great. Follow-up from Councillor Hunter.
Yes.
Your best estimate then is completion of 2022. If we were to approve this funding to you, could we pay it to you over the 2-year period?
Another excellent question. And yes, that is exactly right. You do not have to pay it up front, and we would appreciate it if you paid it over time. But in reality, it would only be at the end that we definitely would have to have it. So yes, we can work on a payment plan.
Anyone else? Going. I'd like to take a second to say thank you, Michael, for your presentation today. We appreciate the effort that you're putting forward, and you'll hear something back from us soon.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I did come out and see you guys. I'm always trying to keep you guys up to date with when things change in this CRTC. When the ICOM bids come out, I'll be communicating with you on a constant basis, regardless of the outcome of today's meeting. And that's 100% of my job is to look after you guys and make sure you understand what's going on and help support you.
Great. Thanks again, Michael.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time.
So you all set?
Take this off. Be able to hear me better.
So we're getting ready to start 5B. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for looking after that section. And so this is the 2021 pre-budget presentation from the Treasurer, Melanie Stubbs.
Thank you, Mayor. This presentation is just to Council Committee is just to give a bit of a framework for our 21 annual budget process. So I kind of created a few slides, presentation slides that provide you like an overall basis of where we've been to where we're going to go. So the first slide is the analysis of our total residential tax rate from 205 to 220. I did that just to try to give council or committee where we've been. You can see that the total residential tax rate has been below 1.2 since 2013. I thought that was kind of an interesting note. In this presentation, I'm talking about a 2% increase. That's really preliminary at this point. It's based on the fact that we did a 2.54 last year. That would a 2% increase in our tax rate would increase the total tax rate, bearing other factors, to 1.188. An analysis of our percentage of our tax rate, the township tax rate. You can see it has a bit of a bouncy up and down effect. That would be nice if we could level it out, because you can see where we, increase 1.5 and then we drop down and decrease by 9.5 and back up and down. A level percentage change would be a little easier to predict or manage. The next slide is an example of a median residential property tax bill. Tax bill is split up between the 3 different taxing authorities, the township, the counties, and the province. So you can see a median property assessed value is 195 in the township here. And then it shows the percentage of, we take about 55%. This county takes about 31%, and the education we get about 13%. So you can see the calculation of the actual tax bill for each of the entities there. The next slide, I've given this slide to several times in previous budget presentations. And I think it's interesting to note that, you know, the total tax bill on 195 is $2,300, or about $192,000 a month, $192 a month. And if you look at other things that we pay as a couple or family, you know, it's about the same as a lot of things that we already pay for. Vehicle insurance, hydro, heating and fuel. So there's always this misnomer that property taxes are so expensive. They're the most expensive thing we have. It's not actually true. There's lots of other things that are just as equally expensive. But within that property tax, so if you look at our portion, the township's portion, we only take $1,200, which is about $107 a month. If you remove the OPP costs and the Conservation Authority costs, which are not monies that are kept within the township specific, for township services, it's about $90 per month. So I thought I'd take that $90 per month, or $107 on the median, as well as $100,000, and break it out so that people can see where the money is spent. And this is a per month amount, so you can see where those monies are split out for the different services. So the bad news, I guess, is that there is no reevaluation from MPAC this year, so there will be no phase-in assessment. Typically every year we get a phased-in portion. It's a fairly significant tax revenue. We don't usually have to even raise our tax rate, and we get a fair amount of money. There is very little phase-in, again, because of the fact that, so we are only looking at growth. And one of the other things that happened in the 2020 roll return is that a lot of farm properties were roll returned as residential tax. So it gave us this sense that we had more tax revenue than we actually had. So during the year, a lot of that farm tax went, residential tax moved to the farm tax class. So it looks like we have a lot of increase in farm properties growth. It's not really growth. That's just a rejigging of the assessment into the proper class that it should have been in the very beginning of the year. So there hasn't been a lot of growth overall. The next slide is just a percentage of all the different tax classes, and of course residential, 75% of our tax classes is residential. Your next ones are farm, and then commercial. Then smaller amounts are below that. So then when I apply the 2020 tax rates to the projected assessment growth, you can see we're only going to get a total of $18,000 and change in terms of additional revenue. So as I said, in 2020, we increased our residential tax rate to 2.54. The counties had decreased their rate, and the province also decreased their rate. So the resulting overall tax rate increase was only 0.61%. So assuming the counties won't change their rate and the education rate is dropping at 5%, which is what they've done for the last 10 years, we could increase our tax rate 1.16, and it would stay at the exact same overall tax, total tax rate.
What was that number again, though?
1.16 would be what we could raise our rate if, bearing the other entities fall suit. I have not heard yet from the counties what their intention is.
Can we ask questions now, or do you want us to wait till later?
It's up to you if you wish to interject.
Yeah,
Sure.
like I'm on page 17 of the package,
Yes.
and it says increase in assessment, and it doesn't have a total, but it's got
No, it
about
doesn't have a total.
$4 million roughly, or more than $4 million.
Yeah, it's just over $4 million.
Yeah, so how does that result only in $18,000 of increased tax?
Right, so if you look at almost $2 million of that is farm, it's only 0.25%. The farm is rated at 1/4 of residential, so.
Yeah, farm, but,
Yeah.
you know, so.
So there's not a
What
lot of
about
revenue.
commercial? Is commercial a low rate too?
Commercial isn't a low rate, but there isn't a lot of changeover.
Well, there's over 1.1 million.
Yeah.
So that, the residential, I don't know what the rates are like in my head, but the residential and commercial amount to 2.6 plus million, so I don't know, anyway. I'm not arguing with the figures, it just is intuitively small amount of increase for a pretty big assessment increase. I mean, I realize it's not like a normal, but anyway.
This is only our portion too.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at, it's 0.0067 is our tax rate, so that's residential.
Yeah.
So it's, and the commercial isn't that much more, so the ratio of tax. And,
Okay, great.
so, does anybody have another question, or can I move on?
No.
Okay, so, in that same slide, I showed that we can do the 1.16, if we did a 2% and we assumed the other same results as from the counties in education, the overall tax rate would be 1.08, and that's, in a previous slide, I said it would go to 1.188, I think, as opposed to the 1.183. So the effect on each of the different tax values, you can see a monthly increase of between 67 cents to 267, depending on the value of the home.
Just a word of caution here, and that is the one of the reasons that the county has been able to reduce the rate, the county rate each year, is because of the tremendous amount that's raised through phase-in.
Yep.
So county won't be getting phase-in this year either.
No.
And similarly, the province has been able to reduce the provincial education rate because of the tremendous amount that comes from phase-in. So both of those parties are going to be in the same position that we're in, where they're not going to be able to take advantage of phase-in this year. So they're going to be looking at how they raise additional revenues to support their base rates. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, point of clarity for me. So that, the numbers that you're giving us are assuming on a 0% increase from United Counties.
And a decrease of 5%.
And a decrease of 5%
Yeah.
in municipal fund, not zero, not,
From the province.
but actually a decrease.
Yeah, it has been consistently decreasing 5% every year. And to speak to the mayor's point about the province with the phase-in, that is true, although I did hear with the most recent provincial budget, they are anticipating the net rate, or the business education tax rate, right now it's at 1.25 for commercial, industrial, and large industrial at 1.25 is going to drop 30%.
30%?
And they're gonna drop it to 0.88,
Yeah,
and then money is going to come right from the province to offset that decrease.
Oh,
So I don't know what the residential portion will be, but they've already signaled that that rate will actually decrease 30%.
okay. That still leaves the county though.
Yeah, the county will, as I said, I haven't heard anything from the counties yet as to where they see their tax rate. They did decrease last year, so even that small decrease, if they increase a little bit, they're only coming back up to the 2019 rate, and a little bit over that, so.
The basic position of county for the last few years that I've been there, the basic position has been that we will, how do I want to phrase this? We'll take full advantage of growth and no advantage of phase-in. That's been the basic position. So that's why they've been dropping their rate each time, because the phase-in has been so big. Now they have had some good growth too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the biggest
nice.
growth that they've had in any one single year was Giant Tiger here.
Yeah, sure. So my next slide actually shows the number of properties, single-family homes that we have is just over 2,100. We have 7 multi-res properties and 281 waterfront properties. The property codes are our MPACS property codes. So I pulled that information so that it shows the average and the median values in each of those tax classes. And then again, I took that same 2% levy, which would give us an additional tax revenue of $118,000. And we would, this is the impact on monthly increase on each of those different tax classes and the value in the median, based on the median.
Now, that's a 2% tax levy
us.
increase.
Just for the township,
Just on the local side.
just on the local.
Now, that's a 2% increase in the levy. What, does that translate to a 2% increase in the rate?
No, not always.
Not always, no.
No.
Depends on the mix.
Depends on the mix, exactly. So I decided I'd provide committee and council with a little bit of a chart on our OMPF allocations, and that's a precursor to the fact that we've been given notification, as all of committee knows, that our OMPF has gone down again. For 2021, it's at 646, so it's a decrease of $93,000. Last year, we had dropped by 110. So we, as on this chart shows, that there was a period of time where we were kind of keeping, the province was keeping us at the same OMPF, and then it slowly went down, and I don't really know the reason for it to go back up, but it's going back down again. So impacts on our 2021 budget. Clearly the decrease in OMPF is our biggest impact of $93,200. That equates to a 1.6 levy increase. The CPP is doing an enhanced CPP, so it went from 5.15 in 2020 to 5.25. Now it's 5.54 or 45 in 2021. That will equate to another $4,600 worth of additional premiums that the township has to pay. The CPI index to salaries, that impact is unknown at this point in time. Usually OMERS provides a pension increase in November, so I haven't yet got that notice. I believe it's fairly small for this year. We have a QP contract up for renewal, so we really don't know what the impact of that will be. Minimum wage increase, 25 cents per hour, effective October 1st. That's a minor increase in our part-time. WSIB maximum earnings has increased from 95.4 to 102.8. Our rate stays the same, but there still will be an additional amount of premiums to be paid.
That's the employer rate, right?
Yeah, that's our employer rate. Due to a hard market, our broker is indicating that our premiums could go anywhere from 15 to 40%. 15% on our premium is $39,000. We have a decrease in Stewardship Ontario grant funding of about $10,000. That's for Blue Box recycling. Some of the decreases to our tax levy, our OPP costs have dropped a little bit. That's due to a 2019 year-end adjustment. We no longer, we've already paid our full LED repayment for the street lights, so that's $38,450 is kind of money up for grabs. Federal gas tax funding has increased by $9,700, and we've just been informed that we are eligible to make application for $100,000 for COVID resilience infrastructure funding. That is only on for one project. So we make application and we can get $100,000 for a project. So that's a possible decrease. Providing a committee with an analysis of our capital expenditures.
Just before you
Yep.
go on there,
Sure.
is there not another increase? I'm looking at the bullet points on the top one there, the ones that result in an increase in the tax levy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there not another increase that would be due to the, we made an adjustment of the municipal staff to a 40-hour work week, from a 35 to a 40-hour work week. Would that not have an impact as well?
It doesn't, because it's minimal in terms of the number of staff that went from a 35 to 40. And in our 2020 budget, we had already built in a built in a full-time position. So we wouldn't actually have met the full complement of 35 hours with the number of people who moved from 35 to 40.
Yeah, but there will still be an impact in 2021.
Not
Not
in
a full year.
Not in comparison to 2020 though.
Yeah, okay, all right, I see your point there.
I think we had only about 4 or 5 staff that had actually moved from that, and we had a full-time complement for the full year for 2020. So again, capital expenditures, we range any around the $2 million total. The only thing I want to point out, in 2020's budget, we had funded our 2020 capital with about $800,000 worth of funding through a transfer of reserve OSIF, because we had 2 years of OSIF money and gas tax. So this year we only really have gas tax, which is about $224,000. We can pull from reserves. We try not to, and the only OSIF money that we have left over is a WIPT project of $53,000. So we're looking. I think staff is looking at trying to really look at what we're looking capital-wise, because we want to try not to be, we want to recognize the fact that we have less funding available for our capital in 2021.
There's that 100,000, is that not?
Yeah, the 100,000's there. It's very specific, so I think at some point, senior management's gonna sit down to try to determine the types of projects that would be eligible under that. The only thing, I mean, it sounds great that we're getting $100,000, but it might have been, that $100,000 maybe on a project that we weren't slating to do in the first place. So it's kind of an additional project. We're hoping that we can maybe take some of the projects that were deferred. It can only be one project, so if we have to make it $100,000, or we leave money on the table.
Right, but if we put it on a project like roads.
No, can't be on roads.
Can't be on roads.
No, I think at some point, and Dave can speak to this, but I think at some point we'll be bringing a staff report with respect to what is eligible, and potentially even having some suggestions from staff's perspective.
Okay, so I'm still on page 23 there,
Mm-hmm.
the ICIP. Now, there was another note from the CAO on the weekend, or on Friday, about another allotment. Is that the same note?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, that is the same note. We thought it was formula-based, and it's somewhat true that it is formula-based, but it's really formula/application-based. Our 100,000 was based on that formula, so we are eligible to submit an application for one project up to the 100,000 limit.
Okay, so that was the twist.
Yes, I thought it was a two-tier system, but it seems like it's one.
Okay, your allocation is based on a formula, but you have to apply for it.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness.
So where we lost the 93 and no MBF, which we could put on anything,
Yeah,
we are getting 100,000, and they're specifically telling us what we can spend it on.
I got you.
Yeah. So our capital projects completed in 2020, I won't read off the list because everybody knows what we've done. We did quite a bit in capital this year, and I mean, a lot of the things that needed to get done, so we're really good in terms of getting our projects done.
The shared project, Latimer Road, do we know what the number is that we've been billed for it and all that? I mean, we had a budget of that.
I've reached out to the deputy treasurer at North Grenville, and they are providing me with an invoice. It's only been partially done, so only part of the projects are done. We'll have to whip half of it through to 2021. Yeah, and that was fully funded by OSIF money in this particular budget, so I'll just carry that OSIF money forward. The next slide is our reserve balances. Cautionary in the sense that there is still a year end we don't know where our surplus or / deficit. I think we're going to be in surplus situation, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. There will be an adjustment to these reserves at year end. and I'll bring this forward as part of budget for sure, again. So in closing, I just, I'd like to set up a proposed budget meeting schedule. And the first one we wanna do is our capital. That's the biggest chunk of the budget. Staff is in the throes of developing their capital for consideration, and we'll try to put together a funding analysis of how we propose to fund that capital. And then we'll follow that up with draft operating budgets after that.
Any idea when we might be talking about that?
That's committee's direction as to when we wanna do that. We're prepared, or we will be prepared at whatever point committee or council directs us
So
to.
do we have the first meeting in early December, Mr. Mayor, do you think?
Well,
Like, that's what I'm getting at. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds as though you're prepared to bring the first draft of capital into the next meeting of admin finance.
Yeah, and it's a double meeting in December,
Oh, that's right.
so we could come with a bit of capital conversation in December.
Well, the only caveat being is that I don't want a budget binder for Christmas holidays.
Santa Claus is not gonna bring you nothing else, so.
Well, you don't need to bring me a book to read.
We can gift wrap it if you
But
want.
Put a bow on it.
What? Never mind the bowl.
Bow and wrapped in gold paper.
Well, I think seriously, we should probably get a start. And if we just have the one meeting in December, and it is a combined meeting,
It's gonna be tight.
it probably should be just the capital then.
Yes, I was only anticipating to bring capital forward in that one, rather than bring operational budgets at that point.
And then if we could
It's
have-
nice to see operational in January, where we have the bulk of our expenses already logged in.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the first two, those two, so
Yeah.
that kind of gives us a start.
So through the chair, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask one question before we move on. Page 12,
Page 12.
yeah, which is the very first slide, okay, which was this display of the annual rates, tax rates, from 2005 to 20, so that's like 15 years.
Mhm.
Would it be possible to produce a chart similar to this, which shows the revenue generated by these amounts of tax
Now,
rates?
keep in mind, this is the total tax rate, this isn't just the municipal tax rate.
Oh, okay, well,
I could plot,
you
I
could
could
just, you
plot
could pull
just
out
I could pull out the the municipal one, was a bit up and down.
yeah, you could, yeah.
So the revenues are going to be potentially,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I
It's
could
just,
certainly
it's just
provide-
that, like, the reason I asked this question is that we ultimately deal in dollars,
Mhm.
okay, which results in a rate. And I'd like to see what the dollar
Revenue
line
line.
looks like, you know.
Now with phase-in, every year,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though we raise, or lower our tax, we're gonna get more money.
Yeah.
So our revenue line, tax revenue has, I'm gonna say, without even really looking at the true numbers, I'm gonna say it's probably gone like this anyways.
Yeah.
Just because we've
I've
got
got
growth
that
every
phase in
year,
or not, yeah.
we've got like 25 homes,
Yeah.
you know, and then there's probably one big spike around 2018
Mhm.
with revenue. We know that because we got another $600,000 in tax revenue, right, so. But I don't know.
I personally like to see that, but I don't know if the others.
Well, the numbers would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because when we take these drops, it's because we're trying to take full advantage of other sources of income and
That's right.
protect the taxpayer. Because the rate inevitably becomes a continuous rate.
Yeah, I think it reflects, like, we're not getting the funding we used to get from the province and so on, we're not getting phase-in. So that's a negative impact, and that means that if we wanna maintain the path we're on, we have to look at how we're gonna raise that money,
Yeah,
so.
we probably should look at revenue in its totality, so we've got tax revenue, then
Yeah.
we've got grant money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and look at it almost like a bar
So
chart
we,
for each
so
year
we
and
kinda
see
know how to, where
what's
the,
fluctuating, right?
yeah.
I'm done at the,
Oh,
I'm finished.
are there any other questions then?
Questions?
So we're at next steps then, we've set the date for the first 2 meetings. Are there any other questions for the treasurer?
Yeah, I do, I've got, so,
Okay.
if I can. So Mel, in relation to budget for this year, I know we've been provided some numbers, you know, in an ongoing basis, but, from a deficit to surplus, suggestion for the end of the year, as in relation to the overall budget, where are we?
There's still a lot of capital that I haven't got coded in, but for the most part, I think even operationally, we are seeing some savings, with the closures of the pools and those areas are never money makers for us, so closing them actually saves us some money. Even with some lost revenue, I think the net of that, I still think we're gonna be in a better situation than we anticipated to be.
Are we, if I can?
Go ahead.
I mean, if you had to guess right now, are you projecting a surplus?
It will definitely be nil in the sense that we have COVID money to pay off for any of those costs. So we're never gonna, I don't think we're gonna be in a deficit for sure. I don't know what the projected surplus would be specific. Cause I'll match the COVID expenses with the revenue that we have from Safe Restart. And then whatever is surplus from the balance of the stuff. Now, we can use Safe Restart money to offset lost revenue in an area.
Yeah.
So, we will not be for sure in a deficit, but, you know, we don't wanna use all that Safe
Well,
Restart money either, so that if we
right.
need it for 2021, it's there.
So where I was heading with that is, you know, if we're going to schedule December budget meetings, for me, knowing whether I'm in the whole 3% to start with, or knowing whether I'm ahead 3% is gonna make a big difference in how I view capital expenditures, for sure. So for me, scheduling those meetings, I'd like to know as best I can, you know, where we sort of sit in relation to how we made out in relation to last year's budget.
I can do a
Just-
forecast.
that's
The only
just
thing I
more
could do
my-
is forecast,
Sure.
based on where we are at this point after the end of November.
Yeah,
I'm only looking at like one more month of expenditures,
right.
so I could certainly forecast to see where we think we can be.
The reason that I say that is because last year we ended up, if I remember correctly, we ended up in a little bit of a hole that we had to, you know, find money for then as well.
Mhm.
So I'd hate to go and make a bunch of capital decisions without knowing that number, and then find ourselves in a bigger hole come January when we would have started these discussions.
But I think it's clear though, we're not going to be doing decision-making on the capital budget in that December meeting.
No, I think
All
that's
we're
gonna
doing
be
is taking a
just
quick look at the
seeing
projects
where they are.
and the estimated costs of those projects.
Yeah.
Presumably, we'll be getting them in some sort of a prioritized ranking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we'll be looking at that draft capital several times between December and March.
Yes.
Okay, Councilor Dillabaugh.
Yes, to the chair to Mel, how does the OMPF work? Like, how do they arrive at stroking us a check?
It's actually.
They haven't been doing very
a
good.
fairly detailed technical guide that comes with the OMPF allocation. Where we lost money, or where we lost revenue in OMPF was with what they call transitional assistance. And so they look and say, well, you're gonna get at least 85% of what you got last year. And then they do another little calculation, we ended up getting 87.4% of last year's allocation. So we were never gonna get more, in our instance.
We're getting less every year,
Yeah,
and that's what I said, why?
yeah.
Because they're giving it to other municipalities,
Well, if you
same
look,
size.
if you look at the calculations, our median assessed value is higher than the provincial average.
Serious?
Our income, household income is higher than the provincial average. We're actually really physically in fiscal better shape than the province itself.
Yeah.
So that's how this is arrived at.
Yeah,
is-
they look and see who needs the fiscal help, and we're in fiscal shapes, physically good shape, and I mean, it's terrible that we lose money as a result of that, but that just shows that we are doing a good job. So we
The
have to
other
look
thing-
on the good side of that.
Yeah, the other thing that you have to remember is that the province has allocated 500 million to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, and that pot, if I can put it that way, has been consistent over at least the past 3 years.
At least 3 years.
Yeah, and what they've done is they've tried to reallocate within that pot to what they consider to be the most needy of the municipalities, and that goes to small rurals, a lot of,
Very little growth.
Northern?
a lot of northern, yeah, northern remote.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor wanted in again.
Yeah, so, through the chair, so with OMPF, and the reduction of that and saying that, you know, our average income and the situation that the township's in, how much of that is based on what the port does?
Nothing. I
Doesn't
would say
it?
nothing with respect to the port is calculated within our OMPF.
So the port doesn't hurt our OMPF
No, the OMPF
funding?
is based on our median assessed value of homes, so and we are higher, our value of homes is higher, our average is higher than the province average. Our unemployment rate, like unemployment rate and household income, you know, those types of measures or financial indicators are what we're measured on, and we're doing good. So, I mean, as much as it's a kick in the pants to get less
Oh,
money.
yeah, I feel better hearing
It
that.
means that we're,
No,
no, but I mean, it does mean that physically,
Give me less.
we're better than a lot of places in
Well, yeah,
terms of.
I just said, when I compare like with Elizabethtown, pretty much the same size, they keep getting more money.
Yeah.
And we keep getting less, and their budget, the province is not as if they're saying they're gonna cut 20%, their budget's the same,
Yeah.
almost right to a T, they just shuffle,
Shuffle money around.
in leads and gravel anyway.
So in essence, a
What's your
place
tax
like
rate?
that might be moving, money into reserves for future, potentially,
Your tax
right?
base
Maybe
is
their
low.
reserves aren't as
Very
good as
low.
where we're at. There's a lot of that factor in.
And they don't operate a sewer system, they don't operate an arena, they don't
Arena,
operate
yeah.
pools.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, if we wanna look at the LFP funding for Leeds and Grenville, when we're losing that much, they're basically saying we're the most fiscally sound township in Leeds and
We
Grenville.
don't need the help.
Yeah.
Well, they put it, I guess that's a nice way of saying it, Mr. Hunter.
We're helping it all over townships.
Yeah, I don't like that part of that, but I'm
I
glad though
think
with the employment rate in our houses and.
But one thing that we did do
Spend
smartly,
financially.
one thing that we did do smartly though was converting the port to an investment in, so that it's only one line.
Mhm.
That, I mean, we're not commingling
No.
we're not commingling the two operations here, we're just treating the port as an investment.
Yeah.
Single line on the financial statement.
Yeah.
Okay,
So one more quick point of clarification, so did, you said that we set the first two meeting dates, I missed the actual date that they were set for, so.
Okay, so one is the admin finance meeting in December.
Is that the 14th?
The 7th. We only have 2 meetings in December for our committees.
I'm the following week.
December the 7th, and then the admin finance committee meeting in January.
That would be January 11th.
So those are the two dates.
So when we say the combined meeting in December,
Admin finance and public works.
in the same meeting,
Yes.
well, we're not gonna have time to do anything budget-wise.
Well, no, we're just looking.
It'll be just, read the paper and, let's go home, you know, because we get into discussions on this, they're lengthy.
But we haven't seen, we don't know what else is on that agenda. They can be light agendas.
And we're only going, we're not even talking dollars and cents, are we? That
Well,
night?
we'll see
We're
them
talking
though.
capital.
Yeah.
That's the capital, the beginning of the capital, which is, to me, the most important part of the town.
Yeah.
It'd just be
Is that the
presented to
14th?
us
That's
for-
7th, you said.
7th and 11th.
And public works
Seven.
has nothing to do with that aspect of it.
No,
Public Works
be
has
two
the
separate
biggest-
agendas.
Public Works has the biggest aspect to
So-
do with that.
Yeah, they have the biggest agenda generally.
No, they
No,
have the
but
biggest,
no,
the
from a
biggest
money
capital.
point of view, but they're not in the decision mode of the money.
Okay, I think we're gonna move on here. And,
Otherwise, they should be at every budget.
Yeah, so now we're on item number 6A, which is back to improving connectivity in Cogeco. So I'll get out of the way here again, and the deputy mayor will take over again for this part of the discussion.
Alrighty, so let's get to the recommendation. Is there a recommendation at all for that one?
No.
Sorry, or is it just a discussion at the table?
It's just,
It's just a
it's
discussion.
just under discussion.
So we all heard the, oh wait, the mayor has left the table, I guess that should be noted in the minutes for the
I think you left the building.
declaration. He might have left the building.
Left the building.
All right, so we all heard the argument from, the argument from Mr. Hennessy for the support of the $31,000 ask for the Icon program. I'd like to hear more discussion on it, to get a good feel from the committee exactly how they feel about that. So I'm just gonna start at Dave's end of the table and we'll just work our way around.
I did see somewhere in there that one of the options is to take 3 years to pay for that. And to me, that would be fairly painless, spreading it over 3 years. I don't know how.
Third, yeah.
Any other comments, Dave?
No, but I think, I live in that area, so I'd love that. The speed my internet comes in and out at is just unbelievable, rigor mortis.
Okay, so, Jack, I have you next for.
Yeah. Well, first of all, philosophy-wise, I don't believe that the taxpayers of Spencerville and Cardinal, or even Johnstown for that matter, should pay any tax towards this $31,000. This is an incremental amount which is going to be provided to 308 properties. So in my view, I think the 308 homes or properties need to be contacted somehow, and I don't know how we're gonna do that. And they should be offered the opportunity to contribute a portion or contribute money to get this service. So if you look at the penetration that I asked Michael about that, and at 50%, well, at 100% penetration, the cost per home is $100.65. At 65% penetration, the cost is $155. At 50% penetration, the cost is $201.30. So this, and when you look at the benefits of 50 down, 10 up, these are benefits that are for services that some of us haven't even dreamed of yet. And so, you know, that level of service is probably going to be more than most people would be happy with. Now, businesses may not be, or medical services may not be, or that type of thing, educational services, but certainly home residents. I got 10 down, 1 up. I can do everything. I stream all I need to stream. I got all the bill payments and all that crap on my system. So, and I have good service, okay, relatively good service, because I have a good line of sight to the tower.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to ask a question to staff. I made a little note on exactly the point that Jack's making about you know, the people of Spencerville or the people of Totem Ranch Road or anyone that isn't one of those 308 houses. The other 2,100 houses of the township shouldn't be responsible to pay for that, and I think where Jack's going is the suggestion that those houses that are going to connect or that it's going to go by their home, that they be responsible to pay that 31K. Do we have in our toolbox, or have we considered, or asked legal for any advice, if it meets the spirit of any legislation that might apply to this? You know, like a special area rate, define it as a special area, treat it like it's a sidewalk, something like that. Is there, if we haven't, can we, you know, contact who it may be within the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and see if there is a mechanism for us to recoup that 31K from those ratepayers, if we are indeed allowed, I guess is what I'm saying, to do that.
They fall into user pay.
Can you not open a trust
I
account
mean,
and put the money in trust?
Yeah, but whether we can recoup it or not, if we pay it up front, I mean, we're trying to recoup the cost of it. I mean, ultimately, that's no different, I see that as no different than, say, water in Cardinal or sewer in Spencerville. You know, there's certainly special areas, but I think it needs, I don't know that we can send out a letter and just say we're gonna pay it on your behalf and you owe $100. Like, I wanna make sure that if, you know, that we even have that tool in our toolbox. I think we need to be advised of that.
Well, I don't, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think that they should be forced to pay if they're not gonna take the service. If I don't take the service, why should I pay for the implementation of it?
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that they do. I'm not saying that it needs to be equally split. I wanna make sure that I don't put the ratepayers of Spencerville on the hook for $31,000.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not allowed to gain the money back
No.
from any of them, should they choose to or not.
Yeah.
That's more my,
So I
Where I'm
don't know how like legally you handle it, but if it's $200 at 50%, and he mentioned the take-up rate was 52, which he thinks will be higher in this one, but anyway. So,
right.
$200, you know.
So why I'm asking for staff to clarify is that regardless of the penetration rate, if we have no mechanism to get any of those dollars back, it'll be somebody on Totem Ranch Road who's paying for the Highway 2 ratepayers in internet, and I have no interest in that either. So I think that that's something that this committee and our council needs to know before we make any decisions, whether we have the mechanism to recoup those costs, and if we are allowed to, you know, to bill those that choose to use it. I mean, if we front the 31, then, you know, can we send a bill to repay it?
So I guess, Mr. Chair, staff certainly hasn't went to that sort of level. This is just an initial discussion to see if there's any interest in contributing the 31,000. How that, you know, whether that's going to be general taxation, some type of special levy, items like that, we certainly haven't went to that level.
So how would you suggest that we continue the conversation from here then? Because I think that that's a very important part of what we're talking about. Whether we can and how we're going to fund it.
So sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
First off, in terms of special levy, typically special levies are only a service that the township provides. We can levy something a service that we provide, water, sewer, storm, drainage,
Sidewalks.
you know, sidewalks. So it's gotta be a service that we provide to be levied against a specific property.
Right.
We can't do it on behalf of another entity. So I would say, I don't wanna say 100% that I'm positive about that, but that's my knowledge. Specific special levies are specific to a township provided service, and
So-
because this isn't.
So if I hear that correctly, that means that we would have no actual mechanism to recoup the 31K?
I don't think so.
Right,
I'd
so,
have to double check, but
right, and so I guess that's where Mr. Bradley, I was trying to go with it was, I think that, you know, I don't know, for me to even continue the discussion about $31,000, I'd need to know if we could. You know, as much as I wanna support something, I mean, I'd love to, but, I don't think it should be at the expense of somebody on Toby Ranch Road. So, but I think that's a valuable piece of information that the committee needs. Maybe I'm wrong, others may have a different opinion on that, and they're certainly welcome to voice it, but that's. Jackie wanted to continue, I think, sorry to cut you off.
Well, no. I know we're bound by the municipal act and all of the legal aspects of it and so on, but this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree.
And, like, what if I set up a corporation and I gave Cogeco $31,000, and that would complete their financing, and I then subscribe the customers, you know, through my telecom corporation. Goes to Cogeco, but I mean, there's gotta be some way in which we can trust fund it, or we can put it in escrow, or set up a municipal services corporation or something. This is ridiculous. In
Mr. CA.
2021, we can't execute this kind of stuff? That's crap.
So through the chair.
Yes.
In all fairness, it is a no-brainer, and Cogeco's looking for it. I'm really surprised that they wouldn't have been contacting the 308 homes, pitching the no-brainer.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, in all fairness.
I don't think their letter of support to ICON is gonna say we could talk to 308 people who've made a commitment 2 years or 3 years or 4 years down the road. It's like, there's a commitment aspect to this thing, which I don't know what the influence on the government is with respect to releasing the money or approving it, but like, that's basically what the take is here, is they feel that makes it more powerful. Now, if 308 people and they say, oh, there's only 100 of us that want it, you know, is that gonna be as powerful? I don't know. Like, we did this with the gas thing, Steve and I went around, and we did dropped off that letter or package relative to the gas expansion. I don't know if we ever got the take, like, results of the survey or whatever you wanna call it. But there were many places they said, well, we're not interested. So you may have the same kind of thing here. Like, you know, they're gonna end up paying, like he said, $90 a month or something, or maybe $95 a month to have the service, even after they've paid their 100 or 200 or whatever they pay. So it depends on the person's desire, basically, to have that kind of service. Anyhow, my position, and we'll move it on to Councillor Hunter, is that it's a no-brainer, and I think we should try to find some way that we can manage to do this thing, whether it means go out and do a survey or talk to people and get a commitment, sign commitment, whatever. I'm prepared to do the legwork like I was before, so anyway.
Councillor
That's
Hunter.
all I have to say.
Well, if we look at a total retrospect to the township's budget, $31,000 spread over 3 years doesn't, it's coffee money really. We're not talking big money here.
3 years.
And when you talk about high speed in your township, this is the starting point. We're gonna have presentations like this come before us when Bell or Cogeco or whoever moves to Spencerville. It's the same with any applications going forward, whether it's us or it's to show support. And as far as saying it's number 2 highway we're talking here now, people in number 2 highway say the same thing when we this year and we double surface treatment Totem Ranch Road. They're saying, well, I never drive Totem Ranch Road, but I had to pay for that $200,000 in my taxes. So it's just, it's
Well,
thing in the township that we're responsible to try to provide as much service as we can to people. And I don't know if it was a lump sum payment of $31,000, out of our budget, I'd say no, but if we can spread it over 3 years at $10,000 a year, I think it'd enhance the viability of our township, to draw people to our township, that we're supporting high speed to come in, we're working to try to get it here, and I think we should go ahead with it, so.
with, point taken, I agree with a lot of it. I do think though that, you going out and driving on Totem Ranch Road, is different than showing up at someone's house, to use their internet. So I think they're very different. I understand the comparison, but I do think they're very different.
They're different, there's no doubt.
That's good. That'll teach me.
Time's
up. Time's up.
I think it's a starting point, and I'd hate to see that, when it comes time, and it's gonna, within the next 1 or 2 years, it's gonna come to Spencerville, it's gonna come to Johnstown, it's gonna come to the other small hamlets, that they're gonna be looking for some show of support from the township. And I think we gotta step up and show a little support here and try to get them started.
Okay, no disagreement. Counselor?
One of the things I'm concerned about, is this going to affect the small businesses like Joe Computer? I mean, if 308 customers along number 2, I don't know how many customers Joe Computer has in that area. But how is that going to affect him? I personally agree with Mr. Bradley, because I'm in the Cardinal area and I have to go with Eastlink. So I'm paying over $100 for my Eastlink package. However, all that being said, $10,000 a year for 3 years is, as was mentioned, is pretty much pocket change for our municipality, and we will be doing a service. There's no question about it. So I would, if the majority of the table wants it to go that way, I think I could be swayed to vote in favor of it, or the other way around. If it was the other way around, I could go that way as well. So I'm sitting on the fence.
As a taxpayer, I'm sorry, I don't think it's fair. I would be more than happy to go and do a survey like we did with natural gas and get their intake, and first things coming out of their mouths is how much? Roughly $100.66 each, if everybody goes. I mean, what's $100 if they want it? I'm sure they'll, I don't know. Would you go with them? It's in your
I'd
territory.
write the check tonight, okay, and put it in a trust account. I mean,
Okay.
$100, I mean, not everybody can do that, I understand that. And not everybody wants 50 gig,
But that's right.
so, or megabytes, but, so there will be, I'm gonna tell you, I spent my career in telecommunications. Penetration is one of the factors that's involved in services of this type. So you will not get 100% penetration. I think, my guess was around 50, but he says 52, and he figures because of the nature of this area, that it might even be higher.
I would have thought it would be higher.
Yeah, so that's around $200, okay? Little less maybe, 180.
Well, no, it comes out to the 308, it comes out to $100.
Yeah, but I'm saying the penetration.
Oh, yeah, but I'm willing to do that. I know, and it's not the money, it's more the principle. I mean, I'm sorry. Why should someone, I mean, it's gonna be like you, Mr. Hunter said, Bell's gonna come here next year, ask for another 30,000 for Hunter's Lane, and Cogeco's gonna come here for up here, and it'll go on and on and on, we'll have a couple $100,000. Before you know.
The people in Johnstown already have Cogeco, so.
I paid for it, yeah,
You pay for it,
Pay
and
for it
if you
every
wanna
month.
upgrade, you can upgrade to whatever you wanna upgrade.
exactly.
So I'm a real believer that nobody but the 308 population
Should pay.
Should pay.
Me either, and I've talked to quite a few of them,
And I
it's in that
understand-
308, they all agree,
Okay,
they don't have a
I
problem.
understand Councillor Hunter's position on this, like his view of it. But you know, when it comes down to it, at this point in time, they're asking for, like, we're sort of, maybe we're jumping a little bit ahead, and maybe that's not a bad idea. We're kind of envisioning, how would we collect it? How would we pay for it? How much would it be, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe, like, they want some kind of commitment for support, and they have to have it by whatever the date was, I don't remember, December something,
December 11th.
11th or something, he needs to put the thing in. So time is of the essence with that aspect of it. Now, if we feel positive about it, we make the level of support, and worst case scenario is it gets spread across the entire township. But there may be other options which we could explore through our legal side or whatever, which would relieve that aspect of it. So worst case is everybody, it gets hit with everybody. Well, if you're looking at $30,000 over, basically, we got about 2,600 ratepayers, I think, in that neighborhood. It's even less, it's not much.
so, okay, so trying to wrap this up. So, I get the general feeling around the table that people are very supportive of Cogeco's bid. I didn't hear anybody speak against Cogeco's bid. What I did hear was, at least from a couple people, cost recovery of the 31,000 is an issue, and the ability to do it. Am I correct? Is everyone, is that a fair statement?
If we can recover the money, I would say, go for it.
Yeah, I think.
But I don't think we're
I
gonna
think
be able to do
supporting
that.
high-speed internet in our township is something that we have to do.
And we are supporting them with letters.
Yeah.
I mean.
Right, and I think if
And
I
we are.
heard him correctly, when I asked him during the phone call, even if he didn't get the 31K, they wouldn't be pulling the submission, they would continue with
I
the
said,
submission,
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, but it goes into 41, he says it will go way down in the bottom. I mean, so what, he's got 46 bids, and we're one of the bids. I wanted to ask him how much is it, but I never did get it out of him.
It'd be $1 million when you said ours was 3% of it, so.
3% of the total.
Well, it was on his slide, it's on his slide.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
No, it
Yeah,
isn't.
it is, let me correct you.
So do you have everything that you need,
46
or no?
bids.
Just tell me what else you need, sorry, I'm trying to move it.
Yes, in all fairness, Mr. Chair, we do not have enough information to go on.
Okay, so what exactly do you
So-
need from us so that I can nail it down for you?
Well, so either you need to decide if the 31,000 is, if you're in support of the 31,000 regardless, or if you want to direct staff to come back and confirm whether some type of special levy or something with respect, under the municipal act can be done, although the treasurer is.
So there's three options basically. One, 31,000 regardless.
Yep.
Two, a cost recovery mechanism. And three, a letter of support without 31K. Fair?
Fair enough.
Okay. Dave, 1, 2, or 3?
Well, if you spread it over the whole township, it's only $12.
1, 2, or 3?
What's 1, 2, 3?
One is the 31,000.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Two is with a cost recovery mechanism, so it's only users that are paying for it. And three would be a letter of support without committing any taxpayer dollars. So Dave, sorry, I didn't hear what.
Fly, because he doesn't have enough funding. That's his issue here.
So I'm trying to give
He wants
direction,
the money,
so Dave, one, Jack, 1, 2, or 3?
Two. By the way, his slide is different than what you got in your package.
John?
Funding requested, 31,000.
Got it.
Cost per home, 3,000.
So 1,
I don't
2,
have that.
or 3?
You don't
One.
have his slide up there.
Jack, I'm
He
trying to
presented-
continue, okay, if I can. Hugh?
Well, actually, we could have two options, couldn't we? We could have 2 and 3.
We could have 1, 2, and 3. I'm trying to narrow it down to give some
I
direction. We're
lean-
looking for direction.
I lean to 2.
2. And I'm a 2. So we had Jack at 2,
And 4
John
votes.
and Dave at 1, and 4 of us at 2. So I think, Rebecca?
It's 4 to 2 right now.
4 to 2. So I think that that's enough. So the recommendation would be to get more information then on a cost recovery mechanism. But so my question then would be, how the heck do we do that and get back to them by December 11th?
Do you want us to do mail out again?
So, through the chair, I don't think a mail out or survey is really.
No, I don't think it's required.
The question, it's the question
Can we do it or
on
not?
whether the municipality can front the money and, you know, the users that want to go with that system can pay that back.
Yeah, that's the,
That's-
yeah, if you hook up, you pay. If you don't, you don't, right? So yeah. We're not making a decision, we're giving,
Correct.
Right.
Staff will try to prepare a report with a recommendation for the November council meeting. Based on the information that you've indicated.
right, okay.
So if there does not appear to be any cost recovery mechanism, then the recommendation would be.
And council can
Not-
still
not
choose
this one.
to
And
do
council can
something
still support.
different than what was decided at this table
That-
tonight
that's
at
correct.
that time.
I think that's the only way and to achieve that December 11th timeline.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
deadline's,
I mean,
deadline's
it's
tight
not a
and
lot of
crazy.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
Okay, so do you have what you need then? Cause
We do.
we have an
Okay,
8:30 we
before
gotta get to,
before we
right?
leave it, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Michael presented these slides on the screen. They are different than what we have in our package. So if you turn to page 10, I made a note of what was on the screen when he put it up. That's the one that's headed up Leeds and Grenville, Edwardsburg Cardinal. Total homes, it's got the map on it of the area that's going to be covered.
Total homes 308.
Total homes 308.
And he had a number of.
Funding
31,000.
requested 31,000.
Right.
Cost per, another bullet, cost per home 3,000.
Which I don't have that.
Yeah, no, we don't have that, but
Make a
that
note of
there
it,
was,
though.
and it said cost Edwardsburg Cardinal 3.3%, I think.
Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, contribution 3.3%.
Yeah,
I got
So you
that.
could add that to your package and you got some idea now of the
what the total
individual.
cost is.
3,000 a home it was, Jack?
3,000
3,000 a home.
3,000 home.
Wow.
Okay, so can we bring the mayor back to the table and move her on?
We certainly can.
All right,
Thank you very much.
lengthy, sorry,
Geez, we got a meeting 8:30, Mr. Mayor.
I was trying my best.
Oh, God. Irrespective of all of this, in my opinion, we're gonna wait a long time to get fiber to the home here. So this is
Okay,
the first step.
so thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for going through 6A, we're on 6B. And 6B is the top 2 budget priorities from each member, and I'm gonna ask the clerk to make notes here as we go along. I'm gonna go around the table, gonna ask each member to give the top 2 priorities. Everybody had warning to get their thoughts in order. So where am I gonna start? Oh, let's start with the elected people. Deputy, Councillor Dillabaugh.
Number 1, Ontario Job Site Challenge, like to keep it going and rolling. Number 2, Legion Way Waterfront Phase 1 to be completed. Do you want this, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, you can pass it over.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, do you want them as simple as that? Because I certainly have a little bit to add to each one of my,
Well, as simple as that.
all right.
Councillor Cameron.
Well, I wish you'd have started with me, because that's exactly what I had with Councillor Dillabaugh. However, the job site challenge, of course, and waterfront development to become more intense as we go along. However, my understanding of the question was that we were going, that this is ideas for staff to take to the budget deliberations. And one of the other ones that I
One and
have.
two.
1, 2.
1 and 2, that's it.
Just 1 and 2? Is
1
that-
and
is
2.
that- is that- well, okay,
That
you
was
got
the
'em.
rule.
I'm sorry, you got them, okay.
Because I have 3 on the back of my sheet.
2.
I know, I've already been told.
You got 'em.
1, very simple, job site challenge. Number 2, Edwardsburg Cardinal Waterfront.
Could have started with you too.
Close shop.
From what I'm hearing, nobody understood the assignment. Councillor Hunter.
I'm dropping
If you
away
want me to
from
read it, I
where they're
understood it well.
going. My number 1 priority is right here in Spencerville, to see Cedar, Blair, Irving, South Street connections there, resurface and a proper drainage system put in along those there to get away from the water flooding down the streets here. They're in bad shape, and I think that needs to be our number 1 priority
Not
for
allowed to argue.
construction
Just need more priority.
there. And number 2 priority would be to try to negotiate with North Grenville to see if we can't get something done with Totem Ranch Road east or west east side of.
Was it Totem Ranch Road, east or west?
East of
East,
416.
Yeah, so.
Ranch East.
Totem Ranch Road, east.
Good points, John.
Okay, and, Mr. Bradley.
I had 2 that, the other day when I looked at the package, I would like to see a more expansive roads program, like drive around the region and there's a lot of crappy roads, I'll tell you.
More expansive roads program.
Expansive.
Yep. And number 2.
Number 2, anything that can make our operation more efficient. It's really critical, in my view, that we've come with declining incomes from whatever sources, revenue streams, that we become super efficient at all our work. So we have some of that money that's available from the province for improving services and that type of thing, but maybe we have to start doing some things on our own in that area as well. Zero-based budgeting, things like that, you know.
And Mr. Robertson.
Yes. Roads and the job site challenge.
Okay, so the assignment was budget priorities, not council priorities, budget priorities.
Well,
Where do you want the staff to concentrate on money expenditures? So when I answered the assignment, I said I'd like more effort put into bylaw enforcement and a little bit more dollars into cormorant control measures.
if I may though, I think we all understand through the money that we spent for Job Site Challenge this year, that it had considerable budget impacts. I think we were all committed to those continued dollars, and it certainly doesn't come at an easy cost, especially in a tight year. So with all respect to the task, I think Job Site Challenge as a headline has a considerable budget impact.
It's captured.
And as well, the Cardinal Waterfront has a considerable budget impact as well in costs. So to the challenge, the fact that several of us answered them that way, we all respect the cost that it is, and it's certainly on our wish list for our staff to work with.
There, now the mayor got told. So, everybody's on record here now. And we're gonna go on. And 7A is the action and information items, and I'm starting with 7A, which is, first of all, the annual animal licensing. I think there's a briefing note here. Starts on page 40 of 154, and a briefing note from the treasurer mentioning the fact that there is an animal licensing module that can be supplied by Munisoft and put into the system, and the treasurer outlines the advantages of doing so. And I think it's something that's already in the works, is it not?
It is to some extent. I haven't actually started the module yet. We've been trying to do other things as well, but the intent is to purchase the module before the year end, so we can take advantage of the 25% discount and be ready for January 2021 to issue new tags for the new year.
Okay, so there's no recommendation here, but are the annual fees that are mentioned here, they show up in the next briefing note, I believe?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, so go ahead.
Yes, because this is something new that we're adding into our system, does this qualify for payment out of the modernization fund?
It does qualify, I can speak to that, but right now our budget in 2020 has a value of $1,500 associated to miscellaneous.
Yes.
Where we typically buy the dog tags and other things, so
Yes.
that is currently unspent, sits
Okay.
unspent, so there's enough funding within our budget that we don't actually need to use our modernization money for that.
It's really an insignificant.
It's
project.
completely
To
insignificant,
be
so rather
quite
than,
charitable, just $106 upkeep after
Right.
the initial, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going on into.
Can I ask one quick question first? Will it make it, through the chair to the treasurer, will it make it as simple as the fire permits? Will it be something similar to that, like, that makes it that efficient and that easy? Because that process is phenomenal.
yeah, no, I know the intent is to try to add dog licensing purchases on the new website. So, and it's a little cumbersome with the PayPal situation right now.
Yep.
But what this module does is really put an electronic database of all of our dogs. Currently, we use an Excel spreadsheet. It's pretty onerous in terms of trying to locate the dog within that, and that means somebody has to manually put that in. When a resident comes in, we're writing in a little notepad, like a duplicate notepad, every year the same information on the same dog. And it's kind of on an honor system. This system will create the database, send out a notice instead of saying, instead of like, come and get your dog tag, it's like, if you still have your dog, it's time to license your dog.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So it's
Thank
a
you.
more efficient way of doing
Yeah,
it.
way more, yeah. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, I'm on 7B, the animal license fees, and there is a recommendation here. That committee recommends that council amend Schedule A of bylaw 2016-85 to change the annual licensing and release fees related to dogs. Chair's looking for a mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, so it's moved by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And moving on, where am I here? Moving on, next one is Commissioner of Oaths, Administrative Rates and Fees. And there's a schedule there, and a rationale in the briefing note, and followed by a recommendation. Chair is looking for a mover for the recommendation. I have Councillor Cameron moving, and Deputy Mayor Deschamps seconding. Those in favor, discussion if any? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And moving, where am I here? Moving on then to item number 7D, committee appointments and structure for 2021, 2022. And briefing note is here. And let me just see, is there a recommendation in place? I don't think there's a recommendation. So everybody understands the process. This is I think the purpose of the briefing note was to bring us up to date and a reminder of the process. So the process will begin. I think the first step is, well, members of this committee and members of the Public Works Committee, hoping that you two gentlemen are going to join us again in the next term.
Just as we're accepted.
Well, just a reminder that you have to reapply for such appointments.
Well, we'll send a note to.
That's what the clerk is looking for, and we'll bring the same reminder to the people, the two volunteers at the Public Works meeting. Go ahead.
Before we move on, this one's gonna take a couple minutes for me, so, and I know that we have a call at 8:30, and it's probably gonna take, I wanna debate the CDC, and the committee structure, at CDC. I had mentioned in the past that, you know, I wanted to move a motion to make it a committee of the whole. I sort of, when that was brought forward, I talked to staff about it. It was suggested that this meeting, when the structure and the review of the committee appointments and the bylaws came up, that was the time to have the discussion. So, I know I'm on the clock.
What's your point?
If you want me to make my argument.
Get to the point.
All right, so CDC has become predominantly recognized as a planning committee. And while other issues are discussed from time to time, the primary function of the CDC remains simply planning. I believe in an effort to maximize time and efficiency of staff members and members of council, it makes sense to have all members of council on this committee. By having 3 members of council present, it gets recognized as an official meeting and requires staff to be present and minutes taken. Further, this term, issues in the villages of Cardinal and Spencerville wards are often discussed without the ability of the ward elected council members to have input directly of these discussions at a committee level. Some council members really don't even get to take part in fulsome discussions that take place at the table during those committees. They're required to wait until the council meeting at the end of the month after a committee decision's already been made to voice their say. This was witnessed with the creation of our official plan and continues to be very evident in our ongoing bylaw review process. Once a decision has been rendered by committee and the issue goes to council, for committee members are no longer at the table to continue and use their discussions to sway members, but now the council members are at the table. So basically, it makes council members that are not on the CDC, they're basically, if they're against something at the planning committee or at that CDC committee, they have to argue against something at council to stop a process. And ultimately, if that was to happen at council, it would actually slow down the entire process. By allowing all members of council to be heard at regular CDC meetings, with our voting members of the community, it would help speed up our council meetings, or should possibly speed up any council meetings, create a bit of extra efficiency on the ever increasingly large council agendas. It also ensures that every ward elected council member is involved in all discussions at the committee level before any initial decisions are made. This gives the residents of Edwardsburg Cardinal security knowing that the CDC has their ward-elected member present, as well as members from the community voting on all issues pertaining to Edwardsburg Cardinal and their wards before it gets to council for a final decision.
Therefore,
So the motion that I would move would be, I, Tory Deschamps, move to make the structure of a CDC a committee of the whole with community members, between 3 and 6 community members. That new structure, I want to say, the new structure would consist of all 5 members of council, one of which would obviously be the chair. At present, we have 4, so I use the number 4 voting members from the community. The present bylaw says 3 to 6. I'm fine with however it gets worded.
you're wording it.
So 4 members then. So committee of the whole with 5 members of council. One would be appointed by the mayor to be the chair, along with 4 voting members at large from the community.
Does the deputy mayor have a seconder?
Yes.
Seconded. Further discussion, if any? Counselor?
I agree with most of what he said. The deputy mayor puts forward, but I don't really think we need 4 committee members. If we've got 5 all council members, all on the committee of the whole, just have 2 community members on it, so.
Okay, so then we end up in the,
Court has 4.
no, community
Just
members.
says 2.
There's 2.
Court only has 2?
Yeah.
4, sorry.
So the awkward position is, and I'll turn to the clerk, are those volunteer members of the CDC, are their terms up on the end of the same time as the others?
So through the chair, the current appointment is until the end of the term. However, it is the will of council to change that at their will.
Okay, so, but yes, but we get into the awkward position where you've got, how many there now? Not counting Shannon Brown, who has basically resigned. There's 4 there. Okay, so.
Minus any further resignations.
Minus any further resignations, right. So we're at the position where it's very awkward to ask 2 of them to leave. I wouldn't want to be doing that. So we've got 4 now, and I'm trying to accommodate Councillor Hunter here. Would you be acceptable if the motion went through as it is, and then if there are further resignations from the volunteers are just not replaced?
Well, that's the way over the past history of the township, when we changed representation, we've left it the same until the next appointment, or if any dropped off, we just didn't replace them, we just stayed until.
Okay. So we would just amend the motion that's on the floor. If it's the will of the mover and the seconder, we would just amend the motion so that it would be 5 members of council and basically 2 volunteer members with 2 of the existing 4 remaining and no vacancies filled for the remainder of the term from those 4 positions. Can you somehow capture that as a friendly amendment? You understand the spirit of it? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Mover's fine, seconder's fine. About to call the question, those in favor? Motion is carried. So it'll go to 5 and 4, diminishing to 5 and 2.
And this is effective January 1?
Effective January 1. Well, actually, it'll be effective with the appointment bylaw that comes into effect.
Correct.
And so that bylaw will have to be written in such a way that as anybody of those 4 resigns or not replaced. Okay, I'm moving on quickly here because we got to get to the special council meeting and then to the in camera. So the reserve and the reserve fund policy update. We've been through this several times. There is a recommendation here. The committee recommends that council direct staff to create a new bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 2015-71 to update the reserve and reserve fund policy. We've been through it. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hunter moving and Mr. Bradley seconding. And further discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. So the bylaw will come forward. And I'm moving now to item F, which is the investment policy update. And where am I here? Investment policy update. And it's on page 77. And again, this was discussed at the committee level. And there is a recommendation that the committee review the changes to the investment policy, etc. Looking for a mover? Of Deputy Mayor Deschamps moving, Councillor Cameron seconding.
Yes.
Further discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And lastly, on the agenda is the site plan control agreement, the long-awaited site plan control agreement amendment for 3818 County Road 2, which is the Cruise Shoreline Rail Group operated by Cruise. And the briefing note is here, very comprehensive, and also the full site plan agreement. Now, the bylaw which will come forward will cancel the former site plan agreement, is that the idea? And then replace it with this new agreement? Is that the mechanism that will be used?
Yes, that is the mechanism that would be.
All right, so the recommendation here is that committee recommend that council adopt a bylaw to amend the existing site plan control agreement for 3518 County Road 2 to include a propane transfer loading station as attached, subject to final entranceway drawing being received by November the 19th. That's the date of the council meeting, is it not? Is that the date of the council meeting?
It would be November 23rd, I believe.
Yeah, so is it November the 23rd then?
No, that received by November 19th, so that
Oh.
it can hit, so that it can be in the council
Ah,
package.
that's right.
That's why.
Fair enough, that's the reason. All right, and so now is there any discussion with this site plan agreement?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Just to satisfy my concern, I guess.
Go ahead.
It looks like the tank is located, and I'm looking at what page number? The page before 103, which is on the map, basically.
What page, Jack?
Well, go to 103, and it's the picture of the map here.
Well, it can't be 103 because it starts at 154.
No.
Oh, 87, sorry, my mistake.
No, no,
103,
Yeah, but go to page 103.
yes,
Then you'll see a map on it.
yes, we do.
It looks like the tank is located a few meters north of County Road 2. I don't know how many meters that is, but it's past the little, I don't know, if everybody's probably familiar with the site, there's a little gatekeeper there, and it looks like it's a little bit past him, and it looks like it's within that fenced area that they put in recently. The only concern I have is, like, what considerations, and this is the first time I've seen this, but what considerations were taken into account with respect to the homeowners that are located shortly to the west of the proposed tank? The reason I'm asking this is that I lived in Toronto many years ago, and when Superior had a depot blow up, and it destroyed several homes and actually killed, I think, people on the site, or 2 people on the site, the Superior site. But it was a massive explosion. They never did find out whether it was caused by human error. It certainly wasn't smoking, but could have been a spark off some aspect of the system. And it was basically a similar, in fact, it was bigger than this, but it had tanks and pipelines and stuff, and was used by Superior's trucks to fill up and carry out propane. So there are some properties on the south side of Highway 2, on the water side, and there is a little bit west on the north side of property. And I'm just wondering if there's been any kind of assurance made that they won't have adverse effects or the safety and so on.
So the first of all, the site has been engineered by an engineering firm of competent jurisdiction, and then inspected and approved by the TSSA.
Stamped and signed. Right?
Yes. Are there any other
Everybody's
questions?
comfortable with it.
Yeah. Any other
Have the
questions?
homeowner's been informed?
I doubt it. The site satisfies the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Any other questions here?
None here.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna proceed with the recommendation. I have a mover and a seconder, and now I've lost motion.
Through the chair,
I
we
think
don't
it's
have a
on-
mover and a seconder for this yet.
Oh, I don't?
No.
Okay, let me get back to the, page,
I think it's 186 or something.
what is it?
86?
There it is, 86.
Yeah.
All right, so now I need a mover and a seconder to action the recommendation.
So moved.
I'll have Councillor Cameron moving, and does he have a seconder? No seconder? Councillor Hunter. And are there any further discussion here? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. All right, now that concludes that part of it. So now I'm on item number 8, council inquiries, notices of motion. Does anybody have anything to bring up here?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have three that I would like to have added to next week's agenda for Public Works, Environmental Services. And the first one is parking permits for within the village of Cardinal. The second one is crosswalk decoration for poppies throughout the township. And the fourth would be discussion regarding some extra trash cans throughout the village of Cardinal.
Cans?
Trash
Trash can.
cans. As was so noted at one time, trash has no seasons.
Okay, parking permits, and what was the second one? Poppy.
Poppy crosswalk decoration,
Okay, obviously not time for this year.
not in time for this year, no, but that will be explained next week.
Okay, and the third one?
Trash cans throughout the village of Cardinal,
More trash cans, you talking summer, winter, and fall?
all year round. Not necessarily more, because we take out in the fall, but there's areas that are now left abandoned, which I would like to talk about.
Do you have specific locations?
I do, yes.
Okay, so you're going to speak to this, or how do you want this
That'll
handled?
be a discussion item.
Okay,
They'll all be discussion items,
all discussion items for the next agenda.
yes.
Councillor Hunter.
I'd like to have a serious discussion about the speed limits on County Road 21 coming into Spencerville, both east and west, and 44, County Road 44 coming in from the south into Spencerville.
No. Up or down?
Two of them down, one of them up.
Oh. Move up. Okay, well, we got a variety there.
Now, I'm sure you've received a phone call too. I've received a lot of complaints over the county's decision to lower 21 coming in from the west into Spencerville to 50 kilometers an hour. There's been numerous almost head-on collisions and accidents on it, rear ends and stuff, people dropping so far back.
Okay, so, discussion at the Public Works meeting. Okay, and I did receive an email about that today. I'm getting a fair amount of comments about County Road 21, I'll say that. So any other items to bring up here? Okay, so I just wanna go back to one that's already been mentioned, and that's the question of parking permits in the village of Cardinal for people that don't have sufficient parking on their lot or on the lot where they're living. I had a phone call yesterday and another one again today from a person that's in that position. And they're wondering if the town can supply kind of a place that's off lot, if I can put it that way, where they could purchase a permit for a season, especially the winter season coming up. And so I'd like the staff, in preparation for that meeting, if you could give a little bit of thought to how we might implement some sort of a permit system and where we might designate 3 or 4 or 5 parking spaces on town-owned property, both on the north side of the old canal and on the south side of the canal. Just something that we can sort of use as a basis of discussion. Is there anything else to bring up here under council inquiries or notices of motion? Hearing none, I'm about to move on. There is no mayor's report because there's going to be a sufficient thing coming out of this next meeting that will constitute the mayor's report. I'm going to go to item number 10, which is the question period. I see the press is still present and the fire chief. Press first. Any questions?
Yes, not in regard to tonight, but in regard to Remembrance Day, with the changes that are taking place with the legions and discouraging people from coming out, will you be attending a Remembrance Day service?
Absolutely.
Cenotaph.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And just so council is aware, and I don't know what the communication problem is, but in Cardinal, the service will go something like this. There will be a service at the Cenotaph at the 11 o'clock traditional time. I think the gathering is to be around 10:45 or 20 to 11, something like that. There will be no parade to the Cenotaph. Folks will just gather at that location, maintaining the 6-foot safe distancing and everyone wearing masks. The wreaths will have been laid at the Cenotaph prior to our arrival. There will only be 5 wreaths actually laid at the Cenotaph. I think that's the Canadian one, the Ontario one, and 3 others. I can't remember what they were. They will be laid in the traditional manner without an escort up and back. Then the service will proceed in the normal fashion. At the end of the service and last post or reveille, the group will disband. There will be no social at the Legion Hall. Now, that's the arrangements for Cardinal, as I learned from the president today. That's the first communication that I had with him. That's the first that I've seen from anybody. And what the arrangements are for Spencerville, I don't know, but Deputy Mayor Deschamps tells me that he will look after contacting the Spencerville Legion and determining what their arrangements are going to be. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, thank you.
All right, now we do have, and just for the Chief, questions?
None for me.
Okay, so just for the press, we do have a closed session here. I think it'll be relatively short, and that will be followed by a council meeting. And depending on how the closed session goes, I think there'll be some interesting material coming out of the council session. So, I'm going to ask for the motion to go into the closed session to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Specifically, we'll decide citizen of the year, and then a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board, specifically industrial land, and then we will also review the minutes of the closed session dated October the 13th. Can I have the motion to go into the closed session? Councillor Hunter.
Move myself, Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the committee proceed into closed session at 8:43 p.m. in order to address the matter pertaining to which the mayor has just stated.
Oh, look at you get there.
Those in favor? Motion is carried.
Myself, second by Councillor Cameron, that the closed meeting does now adjourn and open the meeting committee that now resumes at 9:06 p.m.
Okay, now, do you wanna just check and see if the reporter's still back in an open session? It's still committee of the whole, and Councillor Cameron, you have a motion.
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps that Committee of the Whole receives and approves the closed session minutes dated October 13th, 2020.
Thank you very much. Those in favor?
Aye.
That motion is carried. So now I'm reporting out from the closed session. The committee met and they also determined the 2020 Citizen of the Year, and that person's name will be announced later on, I think just a few days before the reception or at the reception. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the reception is usually held on the, on/before the December council meeting, and I organize it with the nominator to get the person here.
Okay, and then we try to surprise the
We try
The
our
winner.
best.
Okay.
Sometimes it works, sometimes I have to drag them here.
There were two other items discussed in the closed session. Council discussed the purchase and sale of additional tracts of land on County Road 2 and approved an offer to purchase. That will be executed later on. And thirdly, council reviewed a letter prepared by our legal counsel to be sent to Infrastructure Ontario regarding the mechanism through and under which the township might acquire the lands in the Edwardsburg Land Bank. So that's the report out from the closed session, and now I'm calling for an adjournment of the Administration and Finance Committee.
That's me.
That's Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that Committee of the Whole does now adjourn at 9:09 p.m.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion is carried.